Okay, it's the morning I have my anatomy exam in about an hour and a half. So I'm going to be finishing, or about maybe 2 hours and a half, so I'm going to be finishing up my notes and going over the last of the quiz questions. And I'm also going to be going over the board I made last night. Let's do it. Finishing up, just gonna grab a little light here. Okay, so for the intestinal tract, the intestinal tract is the site of chemical digestion, secretion, and absorption. Has three secretion of proteins. The intestinal tract is divided into three sections: the duodenum, jejunum, and ileum. Microscopically, you can see a difference in the size of crypts and villi. So we have deep crypts in our duodenum for intestinal gland secretion. That's important. Oh, it's really early in the morning. It's like 7:09. Okay. And there's also short villi with not much absorption. Short villi means there's not much absorption going on in the duodenum. Villi are used for absorption and increasing surface area. Duodenum does lots of secretion and a low amount of absorption. The intestinal tract has cross bands of tissue, circular folds called rugae. Oh, it's so early. So there's speed bumps or plicae in the intestinal tract, just like rugae that runs transverse. And there's not much plicae in the duodenum. In the duodenum, rugae is receiving and sampling chyme. Using special cells that tell the pH, composition, lipid, and carbohydrates, so chemoreceptors. Lining the walls of duodenum are chemosensing cells here. The duodenum does a lot of secretion, so The duodenum also has a pancreatic duct bringing pancreatic juices from the pancreas. Okay, going on to the duodenum and its role with bile. So the common bile duct comes from multiple places. It comes from the liver that is producing the bile and the gallbladder which stores the bile. The gallbladder, okay. So duodenal glands secrete pancreatic mucus. So the common bile duct comes from two places, and they all so from the liver produces the bile, and gallbladder which stores the bile. My alarm clock for this morning just went off. I just beat my alarm clock, so that's a good sign. If there was no gallbladder, if we had no gallbladder, we won't be able to eat fatty foods, because the gallbladder secretes and stores our bile, and the bile is used for emulsification of lipids. So our duodenal glands secrete alkaline mucus, to neutralize stomach acid, like HCl. The jejunum is divided into two halves. The top half is for absorption. It works on the chyme, slowing things down. So, yeah, the three parts of our duodenum. When you think duodenum, think secretions. Then for the jejunum, think more absorption. So it works on the chyme, slowing things down. Duodenum for secretions to start working on the chyme into the top half of the jejunum. The top half has plicae, many villi, chemical digestion, and absorption and secretion. The crypts here are short because it is not about secretion. It's more about chemical absorbing and digesting. Okay. Divided into two halves with the most absorption. So the top half has plicae, so many villi, for chemical digestion, absorption, and secretion. Lots of plicae, lots of long, tall villi for absorption and secretion. The lower half has fewer plicae and fewer villi because most of the absorption has occurred. The top half has microvilli, tiny hairs which are one villus, coming off each simple columnar epithelial cell, and they look like hairs. Doing more to increase surface area of the villi existing in the top half of the jejunum. Okay, so microvilli secrete brush border enzymes. They are not endocrine hormones. They don't go into the bloodstream. They go into the lumen. Acini are clumps of cells. Villi have a fuzzy surface called microvilli. And these microvilli are responsible for secreting brush border enzymes. So villi microscopically have microvilli, and microvilli have brush border enzymes, or they secrete the brush border enzymes that activate pancreatic enzymes. One quarter of microvilli, or the top of the villi of the one area, have pancreatic proteases. The pancreatic enzymes include pancreatic proteases for the breakdown of proteins. There's figures for these. Yeah, I'm looking at some of the figures right now from the book to reference. So they so villi really do have crypts, but they're more on the lower pit section, and it depends which part of the small intestine you're on. If you're on the duodenum, you're more on the secretion tract. So you have very deep crypts, but your villi is very short because you're more focused on the secretions. If you're in the jejunum, more on the absorption side, so you have very short crypts and a lot of villi because villi have simple columnar epithelium, which allows for more absorption. And villi have microvilli. In a microscopic form of villi, they have microvilli. Microvilli have brush border enzymes, and brush border enzymes are used to activate pancreatic enzymes or pancreatic proteases, which are involved in the breakdown of proteins. The ileum has parietal cells, secreting intrinsic factor for vitamin B12 or erythropoiesis. The ileum does some absorbing of water. Its main function is lymphoid nodules are scattered in the ileum. The function of those lymphoid nodules is to expose the immune system to bacteria entering the ileum from the colon. Expose the immune system to bacteria. Can't use. Okay, I'm back. Okay, so there's two types of smooth muscle movements involved in the ileum. So there's peristalsis, Peristalsis, combination of circular and longitudinal muscles pushing food forward so that your food is going in the right direction. Squeezing food through a sausage skin, drinking lots of caffeine affects your smooth muscle or your nervous system. Circular muscles squeeze behind a bunch of the chyme, and longitudinal muscles pulled back. Number one is segmentation, which segments or separates the chyme from mixed secretions with intestinal wall. With intestinal wall, constant squeezing motion to keep the chyme mixed with the secretions coming from the cell wall. Then on to the pancreas. So this is part of my list. The pancreas is part of my list of things I didn't really know about, and I think I really need to understand. Okay, let's do this. The pancreas. So the pancreas is multi-lobed with many ducts, therefore collecting from all of the lobules, ducting from the center. There's a bile duct coming from the liver to the gallbladder, the common bile duct, the common bile duct also ducts up into the duodenum. Ducts into duodenum also. The pancreas lies within mesentery proper. Okay. Lies within the mesentery proper. Mesentery proper is under your duodenum, holds the small intestine tract together. Okay. The pancreas is an intestinal gland, both endocrine and exocrine. Which allows it to secrete hormones in blood and secrete its gastric secretion enzymes into the lumen of the tract. 99% exocrine, 1% endocrine. So more into the tract secretions. I'm gonna move through this faster. I'm running out of time. Okay. The endocrine function of the pancreas has it doing what? Secreting insulin. Secreting insulin and glucagon to regulate glucose. Glucose levels in blood. Cell hormones, one of them has an effect not just on the exocrine function of the pancreas, but also on the endocrine function. So it is affecting insulin secretions by the pancreas. GIP gets the pancreatic endocrine hormone from insulin. Pancreatic juice is a secretion from exocrine cells of the pancreas. So it goes into the lumen. They come from combined ducts, combined ducted exocrine cells from lobules that goes into the duodenum. Pancreatic cells are purple with faint light patches, which are the endocrine patches. The rest of the purple clumps are called exocrine acini, pancreatic acini clumps of cells. Exocrine producing cells of the pancreas produce a juice with pH alkaline pH in the pancreatic juice. Clumps of cells. The alkaline pancreatic juice comes from sodium chloride from HCl. The sodium combines with bicarbonate to form carbonic acid, creates sodium bicarbonate. Return of alkaline tide. So this is the return of the alkaline tide. Okay. Pancreatic juices are made up of a combination of a lot of things, starting with mucus, which is alkaline, and a bit of enzymes. Pancreas cells, so the pancreas has alpha cells producing these enzymes. The acini cells. Beta cells secrete insulin and glucagon in the islets. Alpha cells and beta cells. Produce pancreatic amylase. Break carbs. Pancreatic lipase works on lipids. Beta cells secrete insulin and glucagon. speed things up. Pancreatic lipase works on lipids. It can't work on lipids until emulsified by bile. The gallbladder secretions are called bile, which are they are emulsified into tiny little droplets called myceles. Thanks to emulsification and bile, the myceles are then attacked by lipase, where triglycerides are turned into monoglycerides. And monoglycerides are turned into pre-fatty acids. Glycerol, without emulsification, lipase can't get into the inside of the glob to do all of that. Emulsification is separating into lipids into tiny globules of fat because nonpolar substances tend to grab together and make a big oil slick. Okay. So pancreatic lipase has limits for lipids. So we start with bile from the gallbladder. And that needs to be emulsified to the bile emulsifies the lipids into myceles, which are like droplets. And then, or triglycerides, that's what they are. And then using lipase to break down that, it turns into monoglycerides. So monoglycerides consist of glycerol and free fatty acids. So this is how my sheet's looking so far. Yeah, a bunch of information that you need to understand. Proteases are enzymes that digest proteins, and the pancreas is full of them. So lots of proteases in the pancreas. Okay. Examples of proteases in the pancreas include trypsin, chymotrypsin, etc. Okay, I'll be right back. Okay, let's do this. Okay, so proteases can't work until they're activated by brush border enzymes, like we said before. And brush border enzymes are in the jejunum, where the villi are. So why do pancreatic enzymes have to be secreted in an inactive form, whereas carbohydrate enzymes don't have to be inactive, and they're activated by brush border enzymes? And why do proteases have to be secreted in an inactive form? So if proteases were produced inside the cell, it will digest the cell, like how HCl works. You don't want to have it working until it is on the protein it is supposed to work on, otherwise it will be working on your own cells. And our own cells are made of proteins. So pancreatic juice is an alkaline, in summary, pancreatic juice is an alkaline mucus and has pancreatic enzymes. So what controls pancreatic activity? Regulators such as EE cells, so CCK, GIP, secretin, know when to start secretions. Some number of secretions are affected by pancreatic secretions. So, and the endocrine system is regulating the exocrine system, basically. So the liver is like a factory with multiple tasks to do. Cells upon cells. The next hard topic for me is going to be covered next, the liver. So let's do some quiz questions now. So I've just about completely filled out this entire half of the page. Okay, quiz questions. So quiz 2. So what conditions stimulate the onset of the gastric phase of gastric regulation? So some of the conditions that stimulate the gastric phase of gastric regulation include so more on the chemoreceptors, because it's gastric, so more on the stomach area. Having a high pH, the presence of undigested, unsplit polypeptides. What is the function of brush border enzymes? They are used to activate proteases, pancreatic proteases, for the digestion of proteins, so trypsin, chymotrypsin, mainly for the breakdown of peptides at the microvilli area. Proteases. Pancreatic proteases, yep. 3. List as many specific effects of EE cells as you can. You don't need to identify the hormones that cause which effects. EE cells secrete GIP to inhibit stomach activity. Once most proteins have been digested, CCK produce also secretin vasoinhibitory peptide EE cells. So secretin, I know that stimulates the pancreas, so that's important there. Other types of EE cell hormones that they affect. So So GIP, CCK, VIP, gastrin, somatostatin effects. Somatostatin inhibits gastrin. GIP inhibits gastrin. The gallbladder secretes bile, which lines the duodenum with alkaline mucus. Oh. So I'm going to put a little bit of a small segment for the gallbladder. So because it stores and secretes bile, and that bile lines the duodenum with alkaline mucus. So more on the protection side. Okay. On to the notes now, the liver and the gallbladder. The gallbladder has bile ducts, which become common bile duct once it joins up with the cystic duct. It's very early in the morning. The liver is producing bile down one duct. The gallbladder is storing the bile. The two ducts join at the common bile duct. Okay. The gallbladder is restoring the bile. The two ducts join at the common bile. Okay. The gallbladder is a sac that receives bile from the liver, stores, and secretes. From the liver. Stores and concentrates the bile. The longer that the bile sits in the gallbladder, the more concentrated it becomes, where the liquid is slowly absorbed. Bile salts, bile without its fluids, an emulsifier that is used to take a large mass of lipid into tiny little droplets called mycetes. A lot of things with bile looks like they're all trying to become mycetes. Stimulated by keep them from joining up with other molecules. So they become mycetes, droplets of lipids surrounded by molecules of an emulsifier to keep them from joining up with other molecules and becoming another big lipid slick. The emulsifier that prepares lipids to be accessed by lipase coming from the pancreas, which has been stimulated by E cell secretions. Lipase breaks down triglycerides on an enzyme. Only an enzyme can break them down into glycerol and 3 fatty acid tails. Only enzymes can do this. So, lipase. Stimulated by pancreatic lipase, to be particular. to be they're stimulated by E cell secretions, so triglycerides can be broken down further using enzymes. The gallbladder is stimulated by CCK and secretin. In response to the lipids in the chyme, thanks to chemoreceptors. The liver is the largest singular entity organ in your body other than the skin. It is multilobular. It is attached to the diaphragm and anterior body wall by the falciform ligament. It is covered by visceral peritoneum, like it comes from the digestive and accessory organs. Functional units of the liver. We previously learned about osteons and sarcomeres being functional units of bones and muscles. So what's the functional units of the liver? Hexagonal cylindrical structures made up of many cells called a lobule. So the functional units of the liver are called lobules. So lobules are cylinders of stacked hepatocytes. Each lobule is separated from other lobules by a strand of connective tissue where blood and lymph vessels run into the tissue called septum. Hepatocytes are cells of the liver. Okay, onto the liver cells. Hepatocytes and Kupffer cells, which operate as macrophages in liver. Based on the picture, blood vessels are coming in from all directions towards the central canal. You have a hepatic artery branching off the celiac artery before the abdominal aorta, the first branch affecting to the liver. It brings oxygenated blood to the liver. You want to go. Hepatic portal vein drains nutrients off the absorptive intestinal surfaces of the stomach, carrying them directly towards the liver in the hepatic portal system. Venules and sinusoids are leading to veins, leading ultimately to the hepatic vein. Hepatic veins are returning blood to the vena cava. So like hepatic artery, it's basically oxygen, nutrients coming from the arteries into the liver. Hepatic portal vein, nutrients has already been drained out of the blood, so it's being sent back into the back into the hepatic portal system, where it will reach venules and sinusoids. Sinusoids are like capillaries, which lead back to the veins, leading ultimately to the hepatic vein. Hepatic vein is returning blood to the vena cava, so it's very different from hepatic portal vein. Hepatic portal vein is in the liver after the nutrients is gone. Hepatic vein is the liver vein that's actually leading to the vena, which is leading back to the heart. In the meantime, between this hepatic portal and venous system, blood is circulating in and around with the help of sinuses. What is the name of the organ? The spleen. The spleen is the second most important blood reservoir. Both the liver and spleen are full of sinuses and have a red look among them. Along the length of Kupffer cells, where blood has time to languish and get picked up by hepatocytes, gaining cells more things to access in the blood. Green things part of the lymph system. Okay, green things. So it's also part of the lymph system, where lymph system is in the liver. It has to do with bile lipids structure in the liver. Bile canaliculi. Bile duct shows a whole system collecting bile produced in hepatocytes, getting it out into the duodenum and stored in the gallbladder. The lymph system is not only about collecting fluids from connective tissue. It is also involved in the transportation of lipids. Places in the duodenum. Also involved in transporting lipids. Bile canaliculi. Running out of time. The liver has functions. So there is a vascular function, the vascular function of the liver is it acts as a reservoir for blood. thanks to the sinusoids and its many vessels. The liver is responsible for synthesizing plasma proteins. Proteins in the bloodstream fall into three main categories: albumins, clotting factors, clotting factors. Albumins are responsible for osmotic pull of duodenum so that blood can maintain its fluid content and fluid volume. Drawing fluid in from the surrounding interstitial spaces needs osmotically important proteins in plasma to maintain pressure and flow to the organs that need it. Maintain osmotic concentration in the blood. Liver, hepatocytes produce albumins. Plasma proteins produced by hepatocytes increase the amount of given nutrients. Transport proteins, so hepatocytes produce these lipoproteins, LDL, HDL, high density and low density lipoproteins. Produced by hepatocytes, and they are also transport proteins. Lipoproteins, LDL, HDL, low density, high density lipoproteins. Clotting proteins. Lipoproteins are lipids being dragged through the bloodstream by proteins being allowed to be thrown into bloodstream using transport proteins. Detoxification category. So the second category of the liver is detoxification. Kupffer cells are used. A complex process well known by a long process that starts with filtering blood that comes from through or past the Kupffer cells that have access to passing blood and have access to grab things, hormones, and enzymes, mainly proteins, and recycle constituents into proteins such as amino acids. Kupffer cells break down antibodies and recycle amino acids in them. Recycle is splitting the strings of amino acids into smaller and smaller proteins, breaking these bonds, and reassembling the amino acids in ways to make new hormone, enzymes, antibody proteins of some degree. Kupffer cells also grab bacteria and engulf them. They also filter and engulf old erythrocytes and recycle parts of erythrocytes, red blood cells. Actually, the second one is actually the secretory category. So, producing and secreting bile. Pigment color of bile comes from hemoglobin, not red because pigment takes on a variety of colors. Bilirubin, bile, which is red. Bilirubin plus water plus cholesterol plus various ions. Bile secreted to either the duodenum or directly into the gallbladder to be stored, emulsifies. Emulsifies digested lipids. Once bile is put into the duodenum, some of it is reclaimed and recycled. Whenever it can recycle pigments and amino acids, it will. Once bile is secreted into the duodenum, it becomes part of the digestive tract. Certainly not all will be eliminated in feces. Some of it will be reabsorbed/reclaimed through the hepatic portal system. Some of the bile salts are pigments which will be reabsorbed in the hepatic portal system, which sends it back to the liver to make more bile. This system is called enterohepatic circulatory system. So, because it's going from the bile movement is going from the liver to the duodenum. It's more of the secretory function, so it mainly involves bile. So bilirubin. Producing / secreting bile. Pigment, bile, color. Made up of bile, cholesterol, and ions. So bile is secreted in our duodenum. Enterohepatic circulatory system. Recycling bile released in duodenum. Through the hepatic portal system. Okay, back on the detoxification category with Kupffer cells and enzymes. Kupffer cells did filtering, which is vascular function. Filter and recycle hormones and enzymes. Filtering bacteria, microorganisms, foreign antigen-bearing proteins, which are filtered from your blood when they have landed on your body via your digestive tract, skin, respiratory tract. Some can be skin, respiratory tract. Some can be highly or mildly toxic. The The liver is amazing at its attempts to detoxify certain things. Detoxifies using different enzymes, oxidizing and reducing. Most Kupffer cells can handle some toxins and others they can't. These are called special enzyme systems or oxidases. Enzymes involved in oxidizing components. The goal of the liver is to oxidize or reduce the toxins until they can be ultimately excreted through enterohepatic circulation and finally through the digestive tract or through the blood. The body is trying to detoxify these toxins. Detoxification function right here. So the detoxification function is more on the using oxidases, which are enzymes that oxidize or reduce toxins that are excreted into enterohepatic circulation. I'm gonna clear my nose. Drug tolerance. So the drug affects your body and ends up in the liver to be detoxified. Non-medicinal / recreational drugs end up in the liver. The liver is a workhorse. The more exposure you have to a drug, the longer it will take to produce an effect. As you become more exposed to a drug, the less time enzymes are produced in quantity to deal with that. Baby jaundice, so the function of poorly developed infants, the inability to excrete bilirubin because not developed in the liver system. The fourth function of the liver is the metabolic function. The metabolic function of the liver is done by hepatocytes, not Kupffer cells, are working with the nutrient pool to prevent your cells from feeling surges or the dips in the amount of nutrients. Our cells are constantly receiving highs and lows of nutrients. The liver tries to normalize those increases and decreases, dishes things out to major circulation, reasonably standard amounts. Hepatocytes are breaking down and catabolizing anything that comes to them. The liver requires catabolism, synthesis, or anabolism, interchanging bits of things for others. It does lots of puzzle switching and stores excess stored by the liver as glycogen or fat. Liver can sometimes regenerate its parts when it's removed and stops. So yeah, the pancreas uses the common bile duct as a connection to the duodenum, and also the common bile duct. The common bile duct is also the liver's connection to the duodenum also. So liver, pancreas connected to the duodenum using the common bile duct. Secreting CCK are used for release of pancreatic enzymes and buffers, bile secretion, ejection of bile from the gallbladder. Facilitates nutrient utilization by all tissues. VIP stimulates dilation of intestinal capillaries. Materials arriving in the jejunum are used for nutrient absorption. Gastrin is for acid production by parietal cells, stimulation by gastric motility, mixing waves, increase in intensity. So the metabolic function of the liver is done more by hepatocytes. 24-20. Okay. Next is the large intestine. Hepatocytes. Which are catabolizing nutrients normalizes highs and lows of nutrients. Then onto the large intestine or the colon and appendix. The appendix is the tail end of the cecum. The ileum of the small intestine joins the ascending colon at the ileocecal valve. Chyme is squirted into the ascending region of the colon. Some is lodged into the cecum. Cecum has lots of lymphoid nodules. Further down the tract, the more bacteria accumulated because you are left with residues and fibrous material, making it hard for the body to digest. It's the body's last attempt, made with the help of certain enzymes and bacterial enzymes. Lots of them reside in the colon. The cecum of the colon and appendix of the colon has lots of lymphoid nodules to make sure that those bacteria don't thrive. Bacteria don't thrive. So thoroughly that they end up infiltrating our small intestinal tract. Okay, lymphoid nodules in the colon keep bacteria at bay. Tenia coli. Okay. The gross anatomy of the colon. So there's ascending, transverse, descending, sigmoid, colon, rectum, and anus. The colon has a line of connective tissue on both sides of the colon that holds it into a slight pocket. Tenia coli. Tenia coli allows the colon to maintain this pocketed form which the other intestines don't have. Haustra is pockets in the colon. Haustra. Haustra pockets in the colon. No sections regions of the colon. The colon is held in place by mesocolon. Transverse is attached to greater omentum. Transverse colon is attached to the greater omentum. Intestinal glands, microanatomy of the colon is interesting for its lack of structure. There's not many villi, no plicae, no speed bumps, very low villi, intestinal glands down below the surface. Lamina propria fills in between the crypts. Some mucosa with all its blood vessels, circular and longitudinal muscle layers. There's thin layers of muscularis mucosa, lymphoid nodules in the lamina propria concentrated more on the beginning, the colon from the end. Low villi, so no secretions. Because there's a short number of villi, so there's not much secretion. And crypts are more about secretion. Villi is more on absorption. Haustrum pockets. So there are crypts for the secretion process. Of the large intestine. Okay. Made it to the last bit of extra notes. So, quick recap: stretch receptors and chemoreceptors trigger the gastric phase of regulation. Brush border enzymes are activated. Activate the protein digesting enzymes at the pancreas. Brush border enzymes provide the final breakdown of disaccharides into monosaccharides. EE cells secrete GIPC, CK. They start gallbladder secreting in bile. Pancreas secretions increasing gastric activity, gastrin, and decreasing gastric activity, somatostatin. Brief recap of the function of the liver we just talked about. There's detoxification, secretory, vascular, and metabolic. Hepatocytes versus Kupffer cells. Hepatocytes and Kupffer cells support each other. Hepatocytes are used in detoxifying chemicals. Kupffer cells are more on the phagocytosis process. Back to the tract. So the colon has 5 regions. Part of ascending region is the cecum, microanatomy, surface devoid of villi. No villi. Intestines. There's intestinal crypts leading to intestinal glands. So there are secretions. Some functions. It absorbs water. Most of the water from the intestinal tract absorbed from the jejunum. Absorbs 1.5 liters of water each day. Movement of water is coming from the intestinal tract and into the bloodstream. If you have diarrhea for a number of days, what will be your pH? The pH of your intestines is high, so more diarrhea will cause it to be more acidic. Vomiting makes pH more basic. And so our intestines are regularly basic, but stomach acid is very acidic. So diarrhea makes your small intestines acidic. So we have some control over pH, so the formation of HCl in the blood. Blood is much more flexible compared to it being produced in the cells. Other buffering mechanisms include carbon dioxide voluntary affecting your blood pH by changing your breathing, your breathing pattern. Because CO2, carbon dioxide voluntarily affects your blood pH, changing your breathing pattern. Respiratory system is a good regulating system for blood pH. The respiratory system is a good regulating system for blood pH. The colon does the absorption of water. Colon does absorption of water. Bile is secreted into the duodenum, and some of it is reabsorbed in the colon. Colon has some processes that produce important vitamins. Vitamin K, vitamin B5, and biotin. The vitamins. What are the vitamins? Okay, so it is involved in the colonism process that produce important vitamins such as vitamin K, blood clotting, biotin, metabolizing glucose, VB5, vitamin B5, steroid, and neurotransmitter. Needed to stop diarrhea. Metabolizing glucose. Vitamin K goes back into the colon. Vitamin B5 is involved in the production of steroids, and neurotransmitters are also involved with vitamins. Urobilins make bilirubin, which is reabsorbed by the colon to be reused. As urobilinogens goes into urine, it colors the urine. Bruh. Bruh! Ah! Dang. Sorry about that. I just realized something. Okay, urobilinogens. I have about an hour until my exam. It's 8:37 right now. Urobilinogens. Oh wow. Urobilinogens color urine. Urobilin is used to make bilirubin. The colon is where it reclaims these pigments. Each white dot in the intestinal gland is a goblet cell secreting mucus into the small intestine. Lymphoid nodules prevent colon bacteria from spreading upward into the ileum. Some of the bacteria in the ileum is reabsorbed. Carbohydrates. So carbohydrates. Defecation. Oh shoot. Carbohydrates are involved in the breakdown of food molecules into the upper part of the jejunum. Carbohydrates go from the esophagus to the stomach. An example is a crack in your mouth experiment, changing it into sweet food. The saccharides and trisaccharides is what your stomach deals with. Alpha cells in the pancreas. Alpha cells in the pancreas, the pancreatic amylase, break down more amylase. trisaccharides to disaccharides to cross the membrane. Lactose and maltose break down disaccharides into monosaccharides, ready to break down and carry from the hepatic portal system into the liver. The endocrine function of the pancreas has beta cells and is high in glucose. Beta cells of the pancreas, that's the secreting insulin and glucose. Okay. Signal to allow glucose into the blood. Glycogen can be stored in the glycogenesis. There's glycogenesis, glycogenolysis, and gluconeogenesis, which is making glucose from lipids and proteins. Gluconeogenesis. Glycogen can be stored in the liver into something that can be broken down, breaking it down by glycogenolysis. Okay. So glycogen being broken down in the liver is called glycogenolysis. Glucogenesis is the breaking down of glycogen. The liver can turn extra glucose into glycogen. Low blood sugar. If you have low blood sugar, it means it will lyse or break down glucose and break it down into the blood. Gluconeogenesis, if the liver is taking lipids and proteins to make lipids and proteins to make glucose. The signal is the pancreas secretion of insulin and glucagon. So if insulin and glucagon stimulate the pancreas, then gluconeogenesis will happen. Running out of time. Okay, so the pancreas secreting insulin to the bloodstream in response to high blood sugar levels. So the cells do their catabolic thing, breaking down and releasing glucose. Liver is indirectly related to the endocrine function. Proteins, nothing happens in the mouth and stomach. So stomach is where chief cells are secreted for pepsinogen. Polypeptides are further broken down thanks to the secretions of proteases with proteins, breaking down peptides and digestible peptides. Activating proteases is to break down peptides into amino acids, smallest possible size. As amino acids, then they travel from the hepatic portal system. Anabolism makes albumins, transport proteins. Anabolism. Anabolism of amino acids makes albumins, transport proteins, hormones, and peptides. Amino acid formation, so it has bonds which gives the potential to be broken apart, taking basic parts and rearranging them into essential and non-essential amino acids. Gluconeogenesis is the last resort for proteins that cannot be digested. The liver is involved in what happens to your proteins. Chylomicrons to lacteals. Lipids slightly barely digested in the tongue. Lingual lipase, the stomach doesn't do much once it's passed on to the duodenum. Exposed to bile salts, which breaks triglycerides. Average lipid and triglycerides. So there's glycerides and then there's the tails. So broken down, leaving with bile and 3 fatty acids, lactase on the lactase doing its thing, lipase doing its thing on myceles to turn it into monoglycerides. Bile is emulsified to myceles. Bile salts also become myceles. Broken down, leaving with bile and 3 fatty acids, so monoglyceride tails, leaving you with a brush border able to cross the membrane. Triglycerides, chylomicrons, big things. Having small / short fatty acid tails goes straight into the hepatic portal system and into the liver. Triglycerides join up with cholesterol and are attached to a protein, making lipid protein. Chylomicrons, big round balls with okay, I should write this down. Carbohydrates are important. Carbohydrates, lipids, and protein digestion. What do I do? Okay. Chylomicrons, big round balls with cholesterol. Phospholipid membrane has triglycerides, comparing it and embedded proteins for moving it through the bloodstream. Three types of chylomicrons include HDL, LDL, low density lipoprotein, and VLDL, very low density lipoprotein. Exocytosis is used to exit the intestinal wall. Exocytosis is used to exit the intestinal wall, going into a lacteal, into a lymph capillary. Control. To a lymph capillary. Lacteals go into larger vessels, dumping fluids into the bloodstream. Liver triglycerides to liver and muscle cells provide energy. LDL is used to provide energy into the cell membrane. HDL carries cholesterol back to the liver. Form saccharides and steroid hormones. HDL are the friendly form of lipids for bile, and steroids, excess LDL, form excess storage of fat and lipids. Glucose can be stored as glycogen and fat. Stored fat are for L-type cholesterols. LDLs and HDLs cause problems in blood. Other molecules absorbed are ions, sodium, calcium, iron. Calcitriol story in absorbing calcium. And that is it, guys. We just went through all the notes. Thank you for sticking around. I've taken an anatomy test in like 15 minutes. Hopefully it goes well. Thank you for watching. If you were able to stick through this whole video. It's about 8:49 in the morning, almost test time. Wish you guys good luck on all your anatomy tests. Hopefully all this goes through for me. I'll just show you guys some of my finished products. So here's my whiteboard right now from last night. And here's the notes I just finished just now. Just finished taking notes on. So these are all the notes I did for tonight on the Digestive tonight and this morning. Mainly this morning on this sheet of paper on the digestive system. Okay. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.